these stories, and I'm not saying Lou's just carrying information. I'm not saying disinformation, but there are a lot of websites talking about Yellowstone Park. So most people don't understand that the super volcanoes becoming active and all that stuff. Doug and Joe, I've photographed Yellowstone Park every year for the past 43 years, both in visible light and infrared. I'm really well connected with the geologists and the different people that would be in the know to know if there's any warnings. So what I think is the noise out there, and I'm just saying this because I'm 90 miles north of Yellowstone Park, actually by helicopter I'm less than 20 minutes.
Wow.
But the point is that, and I mean, I can get down there in a moment's notice. That's not bragging. It's just that I've had alerts. They've landed in my yard and taken me down there because people said, oh, it's going to blow, it's going to blow. Well, one of the things I do is when I fly over the lake, there's a specific area where the activity, where most of the seismic activity takes place, not just seismic, but the area it shows the greatest concern would definitely show hot on thermal, which it does not at this time. But more than that, because I get consistently, what a hypocrite, I live on the bridge of the edge of a volcano and stuff. Well, let me tell you this. Henry Groover was up here about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and God specifically sent Henry. Now, I got news for you. Nobody in the world I know, none, nada, and I'm talking about verifiable, true eyewitnesses can even claim to have had the miracles that Henry's had, and he was sent to Yellowstone Park to a specific point in the park, and the Lord commanded him to speak to the volcano and to literally say it will not erupt. Now, Henry is a man who had the blessing of going to Two-Step Adder Island off of Okinawa that was uninhabited due to the amount of poisonous snakes. And when Henry tore down the high places, those snakes literally disappeared overnight. So I got news for you. Henry Groover would take his place in history as being, the one who absolutely, and I'm not lifting him up, I'm just saying that what a wonderful, loving, kind, powerful man. So saying all that is to say specifically this. Yellowstone is literally my backyard. I get down there more than I'd say most people, and over the 42 years I've been photographing it, I graduated from MSU with both still photography and motion picture production, and then also had a minor in art history and anthropology. So I get down there more than most people, and I doubt there's anybody in the country that has more photographs. My photographs of Yellowstone, each geyser, some of them are up on my website, stevequayle.com. I just don't know of anybody. I'm not claiming that in a braggadocious state. I'm just saying I know what I'm talking about. Typically when Alaska has earthquakes, there is a tie between Alaskan quakes and activity in the park. There have been days when Yellowstone Park has had 900 microtremors. So everything I know and everyone I know and people that I know will talk off record to me that are in the know. There is no issue with Yellowstone at this point. Now, saying that, Bozeman, Montana had what I think they call them direcos the other night, and we do have a lot of weather modification going on over the state of Montana. We've already had our blizzard. Yesterday we had our blizzard. We've got a lot of snow in the mountains here already. But for the record, I'm just saying to all of you that are panicked about the newest thing to worry about, don't. Here's the point, Doug. Tonight, V and I are going to talk about not only the financial, but the state of affairs in the whole United States. You've been talking, I heard a little bit of your intro. This shutdown is as phony as it can be. There's no lack of funding, except, isn't it interesting, for the national parks? So why would they shut national parks now? Why would Montana federal lakes or property on federal lakes boat ramps have concrete barriers placed on the ramp so you can't, get your boat in the water and stuff, and they're going in at night? You tell me they don't have any money, yet they can, pay top dollar to get people working from midnight to 6 out of sight and in the hours of darkness. So what we're dealing with tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is we're dealing with a total facade. Everything that happens is orchestrated. Nothing happens by chance. And even now you're seeing some of the park rangers in Washington, D.C. saying they've been ordered to make life miserable. Did you see that, Doug and Joe?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They've been ordered to make life miserable for the vets. Now, here I want to say something to the vets. Even vets have gotten on my case about giving warnings. I would say this: do you want me to give you the warning? And ask yourself this: who else told you? And listen, this isn't defensiveness. It's just a heads up to what's going on with the vets. I'm hearing emails. Forgive me. I'm getting emails and getting phone calls from vets that are not getting their medication. They're being denied access to the VA. They're being stonewalled. Some of these brothers in the Lord are waiting 8 to 10 months. So I just say horse feathers. How's that for being nice, Doug? To all of you critics, especially the vets, when you say that I'm overreacting, I have sat down with some of the most amazing men in the world, and they have laid the plans out ahead of time. I tell people, all I am called to do by the Lord is warn and prepare. Warn and prepare. Warn and prepare. And again, given the amount of angst, A-N-G-S-T, in the world and concern in the United States, and look, we are being terrorized mentally. Because it used to be we didn't have to worry about going to sleep at night and waking up in the morning to go to work. Now we go to sleep at night, we don't know what's going to come to our door at night, and we don't know that there will be a job tomorrow. So, ladies and gentlemen, this whole thing that we're talking about, the economy of the United States, is an absolute takedown. This is the, if you will, the phoenix being caught on fire so that the New World Order can come about. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to quote Kyle Bass's interview with one of the administration's head guys when they said their goal is to destroy the dollar. It also shouldn't take a rocket scientist, and I would draw everyone's attention to the fact it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to know that Christians are being persecuted all over the world, that they're being persecuted in this country, they're being persecuted in the military, and it's about bloody time that men in the pulpit stand up and scream bloody murder. Because when we fail to take on our brethren who are being slaughtered worldwide, that slaughter is coming to the United States. You know, Doug, one of the hardest things I've ever had to overcome, and it's been tough, and thank God for every one of you that intervenes and intercedes for me, and I'm talking about intervening on a level of thank you for the mighty men and women of valor that have literally brought me to the point where I can still speak without being murdered. The point is that I'm called to warn and prepare. When I met V and I made contact through, I think he heard one of the shows and stuff, we just started communicating, and I realized that here was a brother in the Lord that had been raised up and given great wisdom and great position and prominence in the financial field before he saw certain things taking place and had to leave some of his former employers due to shenanigans. That's about the safest I can say. So tonight we're going to try and cover a whole lot of territory. We're going to cover a whole lot of subject matter. But ladies and gentlemen, do not think for one instance that this is happening by chance, that this is just a Republican. The Republican and Democrats, there are as many traitors in the Republican Party, traitors to the Constitution, as there are Democratic traitors. The fact that we've sat back and allowed our veterans to be diminished, to be minimalized, to be absolutely vilified, nullified, and having to give up all their rights, including their guns. Yeah, they can go and fight foreign enemies, but they can't be trusted to defend themselves. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on. I pray tonight after V and I speak that you will too. Go ahead, V.
And V, I'm bringing you on now.
I just want to say welcome, V. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, V, the Guerrilla Economist, his website is roguemoney.net. That's roguemoney.net. An excellent website. By the way, it's a membership-based website. That's a membership-based website. Worth every penny. And it's pennies, I think pennies a day, actually. It's not very much at all. $2.99 a month. It's a great informational portal for the economic side of things. Mr. Guerrilla Economist, welcome.
Great to be back, Doug, Joe, Steve. It's a wonderful evening here in New York, and as the world sits around and waits to see exactly how things will play out in Washington, D.C., in the District of Cronies, with this whole staged theatrical shutdown. Every day I get emails from many people, not just in the everyday public life, but also people that are in the financial world. They're all wondering, when is this shutdown going to stop? Are they going to reopen for business? Will this be the end game? Will they not ever open again, causing the whole economy to slide? One thing I will tell you, it is pure theatrics, because this shutdown couldn't come at a better time. And the reason for that is this. One of the articles that I detailed is called The Financial Fog of War, and it's on roguemoney.net. In it, you see the biggest problem that we've had was the rising interest rates in the bond market, especially the 10-year. Now we've flirted with the 3% mark, which is a very, very uncomfortable position to be in. And then we flirted a little bit with a 3.01, 3.02, and it was getting very uncomfortable. So with the rising interest rates and the rising bond market, they have to do something in order to create the distractions that they need in order to bring this bond market down, number one. Number two, smash gold and silver price. And folks, I can't emphasize enough. If you understand, if you take the time out of your day-to-day life and begin to study the history of banking, you would begin to understand that gold and silver, precious metals, have always been kryptonite, for lack of a better word, kryptonite to these banksters. They hate it. They hate it because they cannot run the type of fraudulent games that they currently do with a gold or precious metal-backed currency or a gold standard, so to speak. And folks, most importantly, they can't do what they do if Congress had control of the money supply and the issuance of credit. So when these interest rates began to rise, they needed to do something. The plan was given by the bankers to go ahead. You see, these politicians cannot do anything without getting permission first, okay? So this theater of left and right, this theater of Democrats and Republicrats, that's all it is. It's just theater. Once they were given permission, and the bankers said, okay, you can go ahead and you can do the shutdown, because what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get those interest rates down on the 10-year, because we need to continue the shenanigans that we're doing, and we need to smash gold and silver. And that's exactly what you've seen. Now, how did this come about? Folks, one of the bubbles that were beginning to rise, okay, was the real estate market, okay, the home buying market. It started to rise. And then as it was rising, the Fed's endless money printing created a negative effect on the real estate market. And that negative effect was because of all this printing, interest rates on mortgages began to rise. And we've seen massive jumps from 3.5 to 4.75 in a matter of a week or two. I mean, it was tremendous. So they had to keep the gravy train going. They have to keep it all going. And the question becomes, well, why do they got to keep it all going? They got to keep this debt bubble going. And they have to keep kicking the can down the road because they're not done yet, okay? They're not done yet siphoning all the wealth. They're not done yet destroying completely the middle class. We're almost dead. The middle class is almost gone, but not yet, okay? So when they created this government shutdown, what that did is shut off essential services in the financial sector in terms of the IRS not being able to verify W-2 forms. And you need to have those, tax forms, W-2 forms, 1099, things of that sort, verified in order for you to get a mortgage, in order for you to get a home equity line of credit, a home equity loan, anything that has to do with purchasing a house or taking out its equity thereof. You got to have these tax returns verified. Now, with those things shut down, a lot of the housing market bubble that was created was a lot of speculative buyers, number one, and investors. Now, these people are now looking to stand for any kind of long-term position in the mortgage or a housing market. Because of the shutdown, folks, we're starting to see a massive run from real estate into the bond market. And folks, you know, when I say people who are speculative, I want you to also think about it's not just individuals that are doing this, but the bigger impact is the firms. There's a lot of firms. Okay, Blackstone dumped 30,000 properties that they owned. Okay, so it's not just individuals, but it's also financial firms that are buying property and flipping it because they think it's a good investment. So now all of a sudden the bond rate goes down, metals goes down, and the bankers are making a windfall on profit. This also is covering up for the fact, and this shouldn't be any sort of a revelation to anybody. The bank profits, okay, the total bank profits of what they've actually made in the last year or so has fallen to zero. So the question becomes, you know, they're reporting all these quarterly earnings reports where, such and such bank and such company had a quarterly profit turn of, X amount of dollars. One of the things that people need to understand, just because that there's a quarterly earnings report and a company on paper seems to have turned a profit, it does not mean that any profit was actually made. Oftentimes, what a company does, it takes the money that it quote-unquote earned as profit and begins to buy back its own shares. It begins to reinvest in its own capitalization. So whatever profit you had, it's gone. Okay, it's not even there. So all this, gentlemen, what it's simply doing is bubbles. We are in what I call a speculative stagnation, where there's no volume in the real estate market, but yet, the real estate's going up. There's no volume in the bond market. People are dumping bonds. My source is over at PIMCO, which is the largest bond fund in the world, folks. They've dumped $30 billion since September of U.S. Treasuries. $5 billion was dumped in the last month alone. So there's no volume in the bond market. There's no volume in the stock market. But yet it's over 15,000 points. So this shutdown could have come at a better time. It is a perfect distraction. It is a perfect way to create the necessary volatility and just enough fear, just enough chaos for the banksters to work behind the scenes to pilfer and pillage the wealth of the Americans.
So, what you're saying, V, if I understand this correctly, the powers behind this charade, this play, this what we're seeing right now, they can push the button at any time. The fact that they haven't pushed the button to really unplug everything, to take this whole system down, they're just not done robbing us yet. That's the whole thing,
correct.
Right? Okay.
Exactly. See, the thing that I want everybody to understand, okay, now everybody talks about, order out cow, order out of chaos, okay? Folks, picture the banksters as a demolition team, okay? They're not done wiring up the structure yet. They got a lot of the explosives placed at very key joints and trusses. They got it all placed very well. But they're not done wiring the building completely. Because, yes, is it order out of chaos? Yes. But one thing I want people to understand is this terminology. It is going to be a controlled demolition. They can't pull the plug when they still have some of their guys in the building. They can't pull the plug if there's still a few more sticks of dynamite to be placed at key joints. They just can't pull that plug. And by the grace of God, we still have some time left. We still have it because thanks to the alternative media, which, I'm calling it the new media, because that's what we are. We are the new media. This is real journalism, folks. Hagman and Hagman Report, SteveQuayle.com, RogueMoney.net. These are real journalistic websites and information you get right here. And we, as part of the new media, we exposed a lot of these things. We've caused them to pull back a little bit, and they're on their heels. I get all my sources and the contacts that I have, and I see it just through the numbers. All the things that are being projected towards me is that they're on their heels. Now they're in a little bit of a disarray, and that disarray buys us some time. You see, because Syria,
yeah.
And again, I gotta bring it back to Syria.
Yep.
Syria was the key piece. It was the key explosive that's been laid at the central struts, and it was supposed to bring the whole building down. So we screwed that up.
In a big way.
They're not done yet.
Now, V, are we going to see? And this is a question I get a lot. Are we going to see a Cyprus-style event take place first? People, I like mental images too. I see a car going over a cliff and then smashing at the bottom of the cliff in a million pieces. Is that the way things are going to go, or is this car going to go off the cliff and hit a rock here, hit a boulder there, and gradually break up before it does hit the bottom? If the car is the economy, how is it going to play out? Is it going to be a bumpy ride down with many hits and strikes and explosions, or is it going to be just one big bang?
Perfect. Great analogy. I'll put it to you this way. Picture the whole entire American family. That's all of us, guys. Picture all of us on a bus. And the bus just went off the cliff. It went off the cliff, and we've hit a couple of ledges. And now we just hit one ledge. And that ledge that we've impacted is holding us. Okay? That's where we are right now. Now, we're all alive. Some of us are battered, bruised, and injured. Oh, I'd say about 52% of us are battered, bruised, and injured, just like 52% of Americans. No job, on welfare, can't find a job, struggling, kids are hungry, all sorts of financial stress and turmoil. The other half of us are okay. We're fine. But we're still sitting strapped into our luxury coach seats, and we're thinking, okay, everything's fine. The structure still remains in the bus. The flat screen TVs in front of me are still running, so I'm going to keep watching that. And there's about 1% of us that are awake, and we realize, holy crap, the bus just went over the cliff, and we're hanging on this ledge. Unless we get out and get help and pull this bus out of this ledge, this thing's going to go over, because this ledge that we're on is not going to hold for very long. And that's the analogy that I'd like to give for this economy. Okay?
It's a great analogy. So, and we're the passengers. And since the bus has already gone over the ledge, there's no chance of pulling the driver out of the seat, getting in the bus driver's seat, and putting it in reverse and going back up the ledge at this point. I mean, there's no way of that happening.
No. The bus represents not only the people represent America. The bus represents the system. We can't save the system, but we can get the people out of the system before the system crashes and it explodes and it's done. Let the driver go with the system, because it is the drivers of this country that got us into this mess in the first place, and they deserve what's coming to them. But it's our job, those who are awake, to get everybody out of that bus.
Great point. Steve, What do you think of that?
What I think and what I know and what I'm seeing is, though, I agree with it's a planned demolition. I think the issue when it looked like Syria was a go, V made the statement, things be all over. Well, that was setting off everything. What happened is, and I believe it was an act again, a divine reprieve, whether God uses the Russians, God uses whoever, God uses the base. There's a scripture, Doug, says that the Lord, in judging the kingdoms that turn against him, sets up over those kingdoms the most wicked of men. Kind of explains where we're at in this country, I would guess. But the point being is that what we fail to recognize, and this is obviously V is an economist, he's a financial consultant, he's good night. He wears a lot of hats. What is going on right now from my perspective, and he has friends and contacts, I don't even know who they are, never ask, and by the way, I never ask names, so if you want to volunteer information to be verified, you don't have to worry about, don't tell my name. And for the record, any of you who send me alerts, I will never put your name up. Even if you ask me to, I won't. So that's not the issue. It's the who will tell you what's going to happen. So when you see everybody, like, here's the thing. They don't want just some of it. They mean the Illuminati. And this is what V is, I'll make it even a little plainer. What he's saying is they want all of it. And so, well, there's yet the last, if you will, ruble to be grabbed, the last piece of gold bullion, the last piece of silver. They're doing this. Now, I want to speak, and I'll let V speak to the financial issue, but I want to speak to the nation that's under judgment. The bottom line is, and this is what I'm called to do, and this is why we dovetail so well, when God judges a nation, obviously one of the ways he does it is he allows pagan nations and completely wicked nations to steal the works of the hands of the people that built the nation prior to them going wicked. Does that make sense to you? Deuteronomy talks about the curses of God, and there are more curses than the blessings, but basically there's a passage that says strangers from without will possess you from within. I have received 6 specific emails talking about foreigners, Asians, high-dollar clothes, high-dollar cars, visiting some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the United States, taking pictures. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the record, Pastor Langford and others, a couple other guys, got the word from the Lord 2 years ago that America was in bondage, but soon the bondage would turn to captivity. What I think most people have got to understand, and Hawk heard in real time a recording of a Canadian general talking about, when you see all these FEMA camps and everything, do you understand that everything we own, you own, I own, if they get their hands on it, that becomes a spoil of war. And I submit to you, Doug, that not only have the homes already been dibbed, if you will, is that behind the scenes, our own, I won't say our own, but the entities that are running this country have already sold everything, lock, stock, and barrel, down to the last oil painting on the wall or the last Canon camera or whatever. Just say it. Imagine this. Imagine the greatest fire sale in history as the land burns, and it's just like what happened in Germany, and some of my German listeners remember this, but when the Allies moved in, they took everything. They wanted the art, they pillaged Germany, and a lot of the great treasures have yet to be found. That which wasn't moved to Switzerland was moved to South America, but this is what's going to happen. It's going to rape, pillage, and plunder. And see, this is what's hard for Americans to grasp. When it isn't happening before their eyes, they believe that, that's off in a distant future. Yet the people that were mowed down in the Kenyan Mall, they went shopping that day. They never thought it would be the last day they'd ever shop. So the point that I'm trying to make in all this is that the only thing I would disagree with V on is the numbers of the middle class in my mind, and I'm a little more final than he is. I see the end result. The middle class has been destroyed. The money to the small businesses is cut off. What Obamacare and all the draconian legislation will do, it will strangle the lifeblood out of the remaining businesses. And I think it's Hobby Lobby or somebody sent a letter out that went on the internet just claiming they've been in business for decades, and now because of Obamacare, they're going to shut down, 400 or 500 stores. You see, when Americans don't speak up, they feel that somebody will speak up on their behalf. And if anybody on my photo of the day, I would encourage you all to go to Steve.com and see the photo of the day, because the interesting thing about my photo of the day is that it's a tin metal chicken, a rooster that's rusted, and I said it's the mascot of the American pulpit in rebellion against God. I didn't use the words rebellion against God, but I basically said the apostate preachers in the pulpit. Now, why did I put a chicken up there? A chicken is absolutely a less regal bird than the eagle. And where we once soared with eagles, will be now, and here's a great metaphor, will be like looking for land to peck out the most meager existence. You see, because, Doug, here's the thing that breaks my heart. In Zephaniah 1:13, it says this, "Therefore their goods shall become a booty, and their houses a desolation. They shall also build houses, but not inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards, but not drink of the wine thereof." That's Zephaniah 1:13. So what I'm sharing tonight, from my perspective, is that the time of looking for the white knight to come in and rise up and save us is over. Again, because I live further in the future, not in the financial realm than V, but I live in, I would say, the end result. That's what's the hardest thing for people to grasp, but I understand it. And so many times have I pled with the Lord, God, can't I just go take pictures and just quit doing this? And he'll simply ask me this question, do you love me, Steve? I said, I love you, Lord, but your people are tough to love. Do you love me, Steve? I love you, Lord, but could you make your people a little easier to love? I love you, Lord, then feed my sheep. And so this is the thing, okay? We don't do what we want to do. We do what God calls us to do. And I'm not bitter about it. I'm not kicking up or making a fuss. All I'm saying is this, is that it is imperative that people understand when they when they fail to speak up, act up, and stand up for Jesus. The very